Good day, everyone. Well, we're going to break up the series here just a little bit because I want to talk about my past weekend. I was able to participate in the 48 and 48 birthday bash for Models for Heroes. It was a 48-hour build of 148 scale kit, raising money and awareness for veterans and first responders. And I'll put some links in the description below, so if you'd like to check them out a little bit further or perhaps even contribute, that'll be an easy way to do that. Over the weekend, the entire world was broken up into different time zones. We had 4-hour slots where we came on screen, live streamed, number of modelers all getting together, showing our work as we're working through the progress of our 48 scale kit, having chats and discussions, and basically just sharing the love of modeling and just providing a nice opportunity for like-minded modelers to get together and, again, do this for a very worthy cause. So what does this bring us to with this video? Well, I thought I would document my experience for 48 hours building a 48 scale kit. Now, the kit I chose was the 148 Sturmtiger. I did this particularly because I thought, well, it's going to be an easy kit, pretty big plates, go together quickly. And then I quickly realized, you know what, I'm going to have to put some Zamirit on there. Yep, I understand there's a few examples without Zamirit, but, you know, what the heck? Let's do a challenge. It's for a good cause. I actually checked out some references pre-hand before everything started, and just to make sure that I was on the right track here. And yep, there's pretty much Zamirit in every photograph, and that was to be expected. And so let's cover some of the rules of engagement here. Well, basically, we all had a start time based on our time zone. Mine, for me on the Pacific West Coast, that was 6:30 p.m., and I would be streaming online from 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. on Friday night. That was my start time. Could not start the kit before that particular point in time, whatever your start time happened to be. We'll get into more of the behind the scenes here in just a little bit, but the first thing I needed to do was take care of that Zamirit. So I quickly cut out some of those parts there just to get those prepped up and ready to go, because that was going to take some time. And yep, I'm going to be using the epoxy sculpt one more time, as I've done in my prior couple of examples, the Yag Panther and the Stug 4, and just mix up some of that putty. And then I'm going to go back to kind of how I did it on the Yag Panther here, which was to roll out very thin sheets. Once again, I have nice flat panels on this case, just the hull sides, the front plate, and the rear plate. That's the only places that I need to put the Zamirit. So I'm just going to roll out some of the putty here using the baby powder as a non-stick surface. I've got a piece of that copper pipe there that is used as a quick rolling pin. I roll out the putty just about as thin as I possibly can. It's nearly transparent, it's paper thin. And now we're going to get the parts prepped up. So the Zamirit is above the fenders and below the casement on the side of the hull of the Sturmtiger. So I use the fenders from the kit to mark off a horizontal line there, and that will be my area to put the Zamirit. And then I prep up the putty itself, just cutting out along some straight lines. This will just make it easier to align basically small pieces, kind of patchwork quilt these pieces of putty along the edge there, and then start adding the pattern. A little roughing up of the surface just to help everything stick to the plastic better, and we're ready to move on. Application, of course, is very, very simple. Now I've got my piece of Zamirit, or piece of putty I should say. Just moisten the surface with a little bit of water, just enough to make it damp. Take my little strip of putty there, just trying to be gentle so I don't wrinkle it or tear it, and lay it in place. And here you can see the benefit of cutting out the putty into nice little rectangular shapes with nice even edges, because they just butt up against each other nice and evenly there, and you can just, like I said, patchwork across the surface until you have your area covered. Well, as I mentioned, there were some basic rules to this weekend, and that was, of course, we started at a specific time. In my case, like I said, it was 6:30 p.m. on Friday evening, and I had until Sunday afternoon, late afternoon, before my 48 hours was up. So that's the time period to complete the kit. So throughout this video, what I'm kind of going to try to do, I'll put some timestamps on the corner of the page here, just to kind of give you an idea of where I was in the project and at what time in the day that I was doing it, so you can kind of see the ebb and flow of these projects and somewhat the time crunch. Now back to the Zamirit here. I made myself a small little tool because I didn't have any tools that would actually do this. So I found a piece of photo etch that was about the right width and had enough strength to it so it didn't bend over, and I just stuck it into my little mini drill there, and now I had a little stamping stick, or a little stamping tool, I guess you would call it. And I would just use that to create the pattern on the Zamirit. So the first thing I wanted to do was make sure that my Zamirit pattern was more or less vertical or straight. And so I laid out a straight edge along the bottom edge where I'd already marked out a straight line and put my first pattern across, just following the edge of the ruler there. And then after that, I can just continue to follow that line, keep making sure my pattern, my vertical stripes are all nice and straight, and just tapping and moving up and down over the pattern to create my Zimmerit texture. I have to say my little tool actually worked out pretty good, and this pattern, especially here on this front hole, that actually came out probably the best I've ever done so far. So of course I've had a little practice on a few projects lately, but boy, that's a handy little tool I made, and maybe I'll patent that and we can sell that off. Of course, once again, the reason I started with the putty work and the Zimmerit is because I knew that once that it was applied, I would need to allow that to dry or cure for a period of time, at least a few hours, and what better than to get that done first thing and let it cure overnight while I got a little bit of rest before the next morning. However, I'm still live streaming right now and still have some time left before we call it quits later this evening and hand it over to the next time zone. So what better way to occupy some time and look busy and actually be productive than to work on the wheels and tracks. So spend some time here the latter part of the evening, which was a good thing too because I'm getting tired. It's getting past my regular bedtime, putting together tracks and cleaning up road wheels. The tracks for this kit, as many 148 scale kits, are Lincoln length, and I do have a love-hate relationship with those. If they work for me, they're great. But man, oftentimes I really struggle with these. I don't know why that is. But this evening, the track gods were on my side and everything went together just perfectly. I'm leaving these loose right now so the tracks can come off, the road wheels can come off. So this will aid my painting. That's the plan here right now. So I'll pull those off, paint those up, and then we'll reinstall them later on. And that's it for our first night's work, 4 hours down. Next morning, well, let's start assembling. So it's going to take a little bit of cleanup work here before I can really start putting the pieces together, especially the rear plate here. Once again, I just kind of apply the Zimmerit everywhere, and I'll have to cut out a few sections here where some different parts and pieces, especially for the exhaust and the exhaust guards, come in. So that's easy to do. Just kind of mark them off, score the area with a sharp tip of your blade, and the putty will just kind of flake itself right off. As you might imagine, I was somewhat concerned about adding the Zimmerit, especially because we have this clock running, and I knew that would take some time, but a little bit of that careful planning, doing that in the evening, and it went on very, very nicely, very, very well. So, and allowing that to cure and dry overnight, well, I'm back on track now. Assembly's going good. We're starting off Saturday morning here, and assembly's going great. Speaking of assembly, just adding a little bit of touches here. So maybe the Zimmerit kind of started me off on this path. I don't know, but also it's just kind of my personality. I do like to kind of detail up some of my kits. It's not super detailed by any stretch, but adding just a little bit of Mr. Surfacer on some of these plates. And I've seen one of these Sturmtigers in person, and they are rough. So just a little bit of texture here just to give it a little bit of personality. And here's where the detailing really starts to kick in. So I'm assembling, especially the top roof where the hatches are and things like that. And I realized that, oh, all the handles are just kind of little blocks of plastic. So I thought about it for a few moments and thought, okay, I'll go ahead and take a little more time. So replace all the different hatches and stuff with some bent wire. Yes, it does take extra time, but I think the results are going to be worth it. And after a little bit of time doing that, we do have the model basically complete here now. And quite frankly, doesn't look too bad. Not too bad for a slamming build right now. Clock is still running though. We got more to do. Well, one of the times that I was online with the live stream, I'd made mention that I was kind of considering, we were talking about kind of the layout of the project and what we were planning on doing, I made mention that I might replace the fenders with something different, you know, getting rid of the kit parts, making them a little bit more realistic so that I can bend them up and show a little bit of battle damage. And I got a kind of a dare. Someone typed in and kind of said, Rick, you got to do that. You got to do that. Almost dared me to do it. So here we are. I'm using a pie plate. So the aluminum from a pie plate, just kind of cut out a few sections here corresponding to size with the fenders. Just use the kit fenders as my template. And I'll just bend up some of these fenders here. I don't need them all. I'm just going to add a few of them on there to show some battle damage. I think it will really enhance the appearance of the model. So all the time that I'm doing this detailing here, adding the handles and now these fenders, I've got this pressure of this time clock going on. And making it even worse, or even better, is behind the scenes, when we were not on the public streaming, we had this huge Zoom meeting going on, this Zoom call of modelers from the United States and Canada, from East Coast to West Coast. We're all working on our models together, sharing them. And at this stage, people are in paint, people are starting to weather, their construction's done, and I'm still fiddling around with cutting out pie plates. So, oh my gosh, the pressure started to build, and I'm just hoping I'm going to be able to get done. Just a very quick timeout here because I do want to say thank you to my Patreon. Those are the names, my Patreon, that are scrolling across the screen right now. Thank you guys very much. If you like this channel and would like to support it further, I do have a link to Patreon. It's in the description below. Over there you can find chats, you can find early viewing of these videos, photographs, special feature films. Consider joining, but for the moment, let's get back to the weekend. Well, the good news is I'm feeling like I'm getting back on track. It's mid-afternoon on Saturday, and I'm starting to lay paint down on the model. Now, kind of, again, the behind the scenes to set the stage. At 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, the first of 2 live streams started for the U.S. time zones, and I participated in both of those. So I was on air from 3 p.m. to basically 10 or 10:30 p.m. I think it was 10:30 p.m. on Saturday evening. So that's a lot of time to be online and to do some modeling. The good news is I was able to do some modeling. So the painting you're seeing here was all done while working on those live streams. The bad news is by the end at 10:30, I was pretty much worn out. So a full day of modeling starting in the morning and working on the models until, like I said, about 10:30 that evening. Of course, just the basic paint work didn't take all of 8 hours or 8.5 hours of online streaming, so I was able to put the base colors down, the camouflage colors, and then later in the evening, which is actually a good thing, everything's working in kind of a nice rhythm here. So again, like with the Zamarid on Friday, allowing it to cure overnight, and then working on the road wheels as I'm getting very tired. I was able to lay down the camouflage earlier in the live streams during the late afternoon and early evening. And then the later evening sessions, I can just start working on some of the weathering, using my oils as usual right now. Again, these are going to take a little bit of extra time perhaps to dry, but I do have a hair dryer, and I know that I have it overnight to allow these to really cure up so I can get a good start on the weathering and then hit it again first thing in the morning. The weathering takes on a pattern very similar to what I always do. Didn't change things up here much at all. Lay down a first layer that's a light dust color, so I'm using light mud in this case, just a little bit of contrast against the light background of the Dunkelgelb. And then for my darker color, my more dirty, more saturated mud colors or dirt colors, I'm using Starship Filth, which is a wonderful color as well, just adding those in. And then using, of course, a soft brush to kind of blend everything out and together. I'll highlight some of these edges, showing a little bit of wear, and this is using shadow brown color. Any dark brown color would work like this, almost like a chipping, but it's not really. You're just basically kind of profiling the edges, kind of giving a little bit of definition to the model and its shape. Over the course of the evening, I continue weathering around the model. This will be a good first start on the weathering, given this first evening here. Of course, it will dry overnight. I'll come back and I'll be able to work with it some more. But we're coming to the end of our second live stream and ready to turn off for the night, so we'll tackle it again in the morning. Okay, here we are Sunday morning, and oh, a cruel thing happened overnight. We changed our clocks, so it's now an hour shorter than 48 hours, and I'm an hour more tired because of the lack of sleep. But we're getting to start first thing. What I wanted to do here, first off, to get everything started, was to get those tracks and wheels on. I thought that would set the tone here, and so add some pigments to the lower hull. Just a quick, easy method just to show some dirt and get that all set up and ready to go. And then I'm painting out all these road wheels, which of course takes forever. But here we go. We're ready to install the tracks. And yes, I'm going to go black here right now for a while, because remember those Lincoln Length tracks that I have the love-hate relationship with? Well, they decided to fight me Sunday morning. And I spent nearly an hour to hour and a half trying to get those back onto the kit itself. They just did not want to. It's a long story. I struggled with it. I was stressed. But finally, in the end, they got put back onto the vehicle, and I'm ready to move on. As you can see, the tracks are on. Everything looks great. It's fine. No one will ever know the difference, other than now it's so much later in the day than I hoped it would be. And now I want to continue on with the weathering. So at this point, I've got my first layer of oils on. I can start to see some of the definition and details starting to come out. But I want to add a little bit of scratching and chipping, and I'm doing that with acrylic colors. This is a light sand color, basically the base color, just kind of adding some chips to some of those areas, just very, very, very fine chips. Again, just to give it just a little bit more personality. So now this brings us to Sunday afternoon, and I'm in the middle of what will be the last public live stream of the event. So this will be the wrap up of the entire weekend. Still a few hours before closing, but the model's starting to look good. What I'm doing now is simply just adding some nuance and color variations to some of the camouflage patterns, not really adjusting the weathering per se. So I've got some kind of purple brown colors that I'm adding to help kind of nuance some of those patches. I've got some green colors that I'm adding to kind of move some of those and shift some of those colors around a little bit, just to make the visuals a little bit more interesting. As we moved through the live stream, there became a time when the last event of the weekend was going to happen, and that was a huge auction with participants all over the United States and Canada bidding on some fabulous merchandise. And that allowed me to pull off the live stream, finish up the kit, and present my final photographs here. Well, before I go any further here, and please hang on for this because this is important, the Models for a Hero charity, the fund there, thank you to James and Mel for organizing this. You guys do fantastic work providing model kits and support for veterans and first responders coping with their difficulties. The folks in the United States who helped coordinate all of us in order to make this such a successful weekend. Plastic Posse Podcast, the Model Geeks. I'm sure I'm forgetting people I don't even know that are behind the scenes. It was a wonderful event. And to you folks, my fellow modelers that I was able to meet over the weekend and hang out with, and we shared our photographs or videos together and just chatted away. What a great weekend. It was my pleasure to be part of your company. And now for that $1 million question. Hey, Rick, were you able to finish your model within the 48 hours? And I guess I'll respond by saying, take a look at the photographs. What do you think? Did I finish or not? Could I have done more? Yeah, if I had more time. Would I have done more if I had more time? I'm not so sure. I'm happy with the model the way it came out. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have enjoyed this episode, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you'd like to support this channel even further, I do have a Patreon page. The link is below. And then once again, I do have links below to get you in contact with the Models for Heroes charity. They do fantastic work. I'll put a bunch of links in there, so if you'd like to help them out, like to contact them for any reason, that's the way to do it. To the folks that I worked with this weekend and that helped support this event, thank you very much. And to you, my viewers, happy modeling. We'll see you in the next one.